days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a little bit more palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, a show that goes up twice weekly. Normally, we have had a lot of different things in the last couple of weeks, whether it was convention coverage with, the Comic-Con and filming panels, and we just got done having a Jurassic Park week where we took just a slight siesta as I reread both of the Michael Crichton novels, which that silly franchise at this point was at least initially based upon. But we are back to a new episode of my beloved program, which is nearing 100 episodes at this point, which just blows my mind. So hopefully everybody has had the opportunity to see the panels that we did, both, we had one that got canceled, which was the Pet Cemetery one due to electronic issues at the Phoenix Comic Fan Fusion Fest, whatever the hell you want to call it now. But also had, a panel that we did about The Stand and about It. So both of those have gone up, and since we've exhausted that convention coverage, which was, kind of my time to recharge the batteries a little bit and do some of the Crichton stuff, we are back today with a, Under the Dome is not a Stephen King book that I would say is one of my favorites. It's not even close, honestly. It was a magnum opus that he put out in November of 2009, and I actually have fellow constant readers that tell me all the time, through Twitter or Facebook or whatever, that they adore this book. They think it's one of his absolute best. Not for me. It's kind of on a level with Sleeping Beauties for me, where it's ambitious. There is a very large cast of characters. I like a few of the central ones, but the supporting is not that intriguing. And even though I really like, I like the concept, and this is a concept he's been floundering about with since the 80s, the early 80s in fact, when he had this idea for a book called The Cannibals, and it was about people being like stuck in an apartment complex or something. And so, long story short, I was always well aware that there was a television adaptation, loose adaptation is the best way I can describe it, of Under the Dome. And yet, right after I got done reading the book and not being so supremely impressed with it, although I did really like the character of Julia and Barbie and their dynamic, and I really was captivated, despite the fact that he's a little one-dimensional, by the villainy of Big Jim, and and once again, I thought the concept was really cool, even if, Samson's dead, but I just felt like it was bloated and too long and so on and so forth. But it did offer similar, interesting, just, I guess, character observations and, just looks at the dark underbelly of humanity and how it would react with, just the whole bunker mentality kind of thing. But I don't know, it was done so much better in The Mist. And so for that reason, I don't know, Under the Dome, if you love it, if you think it's one of his best, I've seen people put it in his top 5 ever, to each their own, tomato, so on and so forth. But for that reason, after initially reading it, I watched a pilot to this, and this was maybe 3 years ago or so when I first, got done reading Under the Dome, and I was like, you know what? This is already, in the pilot, it goes in different directions with, especially one character in particular. And so I was like, maybe I need to just step away from this and return to it at the right time. And the right time is this week for Hail to Stephen King, as I meander around with my point here, because of the fact that on June 24th of 2013, we had the premiere, produced by Amblin Entertainment, that's right, Steven Spielberg's company, of Under the Dome on CBS. Under the Dome was originally going to be adapted to Showtime, which in some ways I think might have been a better home for it with some of the dark aspects of the material, but really, aside from the pilot, where there's some carnage that I was not expecting, like limbs from a blown up plane and, the cow getting sliced in half and stuff like that, really the rest of the way, except for some gun violence and stuff like that, it's really it's really kind of on the tamer CBS side of things. And so I am here to talk about, for the 5-year anniversary of its premiere, Under the Dome Season 1, because I just got done watching it. in rapid succession in the last couple of days. And I must say, it's not that good, but it's definitely not terrible. It's really one of those middle-of-the-road Stephen King adaptations that, unfortunately, I feel like until his resurgence, like in the last year or so, that people had kind of grown to expect from King, really, I mean, dating back to even like the 90s, when, you know, so many of his adaptations just were, they were just so, you know. And while I may still hold fond places in my heart for things like the Langoliers and the retelling of The Shining, and you know what, I don't care what anybody says, Storm of the Century is exceptional, but, you know, even things that I wasn't the biggest fan of, like Rose Red and Kingdom Hospital, both of which I know I need to do rewatches and proper reviews on. But I mean, even adaptations like you know, in the years around this, you know, like you know, Big Driver and A Good Marriage and things like that. I mean, King, up until pretty much the King-assance, if we're going to call it, you know, obviously It being the most notorious, the reworking of that, I really think that all of his adaptations were just so. Now, I'm going to go through a little bit of what I really like about this, what I'm not the biggest fan of, and, you know, I'll do the standard horror show, you know, tropes of approach. So, overall impression, I liked some of the changes that they made. Once again, we are taking a ginormous book in the near 1,000 page range, and, you know, you would think that, now I haven't watched seasons 2 and 3, so I can't really comment on where things continue to go, and I'm going to make this as non-spoilery as I can, but there's characters that die at the beginning of the book, you know, that have big, long time, you know, just lead roles, at least in this so far. I can't speak, you know, to the later seasons, as I mentioned. Most notably, Angie, you know, Britt Robertson, I believe her name is. She is a very, very pretty little lady, and you know, she ends up becoming one of the main characters in this, and a crux, and her character that, spoilers here, dies in the book, is killed by another character, ends up being one of the leads in this, which is kind of crazy. And so, yeah, overall impressions, it's, ever since It, I have been trying, and I'm glad I watched this after watching Andy Muschetti's It, because ever since It, I've been trying to be more okay with reworkings of King material, you know, because I definitely had my qualms with that adaptation, that reinterpretation, if you will, and I slowly worked my way through them. I still prefer the original miniseries, I really do, but I tried to look at the new It in 2017 as its own thing, and just, you know, King has himself even spoken out constantly that he does enjoy certain, like, pretty hefty reworkings of his material. The Dead Zone is one that he praises constantly. There's various others. You know, Misery is one. Well, no, I'd say Misery kind of upholds the source material despite some of the changes here and there. But long story short, I do feel like this is in the spirit of the source material pretty well. And for overall impressions, I'd probably give it, like, you know, like 3 stars. You know, like a B. You know, so it didn't wow me, but there was really a lot that I liked. First and foremost, the production value. I liked most of the acting, especially from the leads and stuff like that. So overall impressions, I don't know how bad things get in later seasons, but I found a lot to like about this show that started out wildly popular. They had this hefty Super Bowl ad, you know, like onslaught behind it and stuff, and a big marketing campaign, premiered to like the biggest summer rating CBS had seen since the 90s, and so it was like kind of one of those summer television events, and you know, it does build in an interesting fashion. And so you know, if we're gonna bump to story's basically Chester Mills. I'm trying to remember if they even mentioned that it's in Maine in this, because I know they filmed this in Carolina, North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, in the book, it's Chester Mills, Maine, and they even, you know, make some King verse references and stuff like that in the book. But all of a sudden, one particular day, a dome just pops down on this town, and of course there is carnage, and that's really what the initial portion of the book describes, is animals getting cut in half. I think there's a beaver in particular in the book. It's a cow in particular in this. You know, a beat taken directly from the book is because it's a clear dome, you know, and so there's cars driving right into it. There's planes flying into it, you know? And so the entire when it first hits, it's all, you know, very well done and compelling, and then you basically start to see how people react to realizing that they're isolated, there's no escape, the cabin fever of diminishing resources, and you've got this guy named Barbie, who in the book was a short order cook at Rose's Diner, and Rose is also a character who's in this series, but you know, and they do mention at one particular point in this that he had all these different odd jobs, and one of which was a short order cook and, you know, doing day labor, all these different things. But in this, they kind of change his character up, and he's like working with like mob type people and stuff like that, and going after you know, people with gambling debts. And so, once again, I'm not trying to spoil too much, but yeah, and he ends up kind of hooking up with this reporter named Julia, who was like investigating the incident, and then teams up in the big screen adaptation with a few different people, most notably a woman from the radio station, and then there's a couple of kids, Nori and Joe, who are kind of investigating things, and Joe has this really annoying friend who's really, really annoying. I want to say his name's Ben in the TV series, and he's extremely annoying. And then there is this local used car salesman named Big Jim, who has this son named Junior, and Junior is very effed up in the head. Less effed up in this, though, and that's something that I will definitely get to as I get to the acting and stuff like that. But the guy who's playing Big Jim, he was on Breaking Bad for like 5 years, I want to say, and some of the storytelling elements that we eventually get to later on. And they do, despite all the changes, hit a lot of the big important beats, like, you know, just the mania and the looting that happens at one particular point, which is one of my favorite parts in the actual novel, which is where, you know, as those resources start to diminish, there's this riot kind of thing that happens at this grocery store. And so, yeah, just seeing how people are realizing, like, in the grand scheme of things, and when there's no hope of escape, and they don't even see that little twinkle, that little glimmer, how they start to react. Also, where the U.S. government realizes that they have no idea where this thing came from and what they're going to do about it, and like, so they start testing weapons, trying to, you know, break the dome and things like that. So these are a few beats directly from the book that I felt like were transferred very, very well. And then there's other story elements with like drug rings and things like that I wasn't sure they were initially going to get to, despite hinting at it, you know, from the get-go. I was like, oh, are they going to wait till the second season? But they start to get there. Long story short, though, it's very drawn out. It's like, I can't even imagine what the second and third seasons are going to be like. I heard that it was diminishing returns. I'm honestly curious. I have to watch the second and third season now at this point, because I'm at least compelled enough and enjoyed the four main actors enough. I'd say, I guess the six main actors enough to, at least in the first season, to really continue on. But yeah, so that's really how it goes. It's people factioning off. It's power struggles. It's, you know, it's the just, you know, growing fear of all of these people, and also trying to figure out who brought the dome. You know, is it aliens? Is it another, you know, rival government, or what could it potentially be? And as I said, I'm really not trying to spoil things here. So, story-wise, I felt like, despite veering into the sectors of melodrama at times, it pretty effectively brought new ideas in and expanded on others, and then also made certain characters more interesting to me, which I'm going to get to the acting here in a moment. And Brian K. Vaughan, who is the co-creator and writer of Y: The Last Man, he also did some work on Lost for some of the later seasons, 3 through 5, if I'm not mistaken, and he's written tons of other comics. You know, he's did The Runaways, lots of other X-Men books. He's done some stuff for, you know, DC, and so, I mean, he is well esteemed in the comic industry. People love the hell out of Brian K. Vaughan, and I haven't read an extensive amount of his stuff. Why: The Last Man is one that has been on my list for a while, and I just haven't gotten to it, but I know everybody in the comic community seems to praise the hell out of it, so I would assume there's merit there. And with executive producers here like Stephen King, and you know, obviously Stephen King's going to be an EP on this, but you know, Spielberg and his Amblin Entertainment Company, we'll get to production values in time here. But yeah, let's just jump into characters. And so I didn't take down names of actors purposefully here, with the exception of I know Britt Robertson from most notably, I really fell in love with that young lady with Tomorrowland. I thought that movie was supremely underrated, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. She's very good in this. Also, once again, the guy who plays Big Jim. Seriously, he made this character, in my opinion, so much more layered and interesting than this guy in the book, who... The guy in the book is very one-note villain, scheming, maniacal and stuff like that. There is so much more complexity, not just to the way this guy emotes and, portrays the character, but to the way that he's written. And he really brings it in this. He's a character that he feels like a real person, as opposed to just, mustache twirling, I'm gonna turn, the whole city, in my favor, blah, blah, blah. And, he starts to get there. But, yeah, he gets there. But he just really, he made the character so much more interesting to me, and you see more of a progression as opposed to, just pure maniacal from the get-go. So that's a positive of some alterations to the character. Negative alterations to the character, whereas they did, at least initially, give you some sympathetic traits to, to the father. I did not like the sympathetic traits that they gave to Junior. In the book, really, Junior's the one with this vendetta, against Barbie and stuff, and it's really funny the way the audiobook is written, because, when I was doing both, I was listening some and I was reading some, and Barbie, and, yeah, he is just a piece of shizzle in the book, and they try to make him more heartthrob status in this, man, and I know, he's football player and privileged son and all this different stuff, but especially in some of the later episodes where he's trying to kind of smooth things out with a character that he has wronged significantly, and like they're kind of going along with it to some degree. I don't know. I didn't like the portrayal. I felt like they really, once again, trying to make characters real characters and stuff. So, yeah, there's my 2 cents on Junior. I loved, did I love this Canadian actress playing Julia. She is such a babe, good lord. Red hair, blue eyes, wowza. And, she had great chemistry with this actor playing Barbie, who I know he's done lots of different military-based stuff, and I think he's even on one of those kind of shows now where he's either an investigator or a soldier, something like that, and he's done tons of films as well beyond this. But I really dug their chemistry, and he made Barbie more hard-edged in this, and at first I wasn't sure I liked it, but as the series went on and you saw just the military parallels and everything, which is all present in the book, and honestly, I like some of the working together of Barbie and Bill that you see in this, or Big Jim, I should say. Yeah, it's good. I even like Joe and Nori in this. At first, I wasn't so big on them, but they've got kind of a cute little thing going on in this that I really dug. Once again, most of the minor characters in this I don't enjoy. I didn't enjoy the guy who basically takes Big Jim's role initially, and the whole water struggle kind of thing, and the scheming, and just I don't know. That's the thing, when you're sustaining 13 episodes and then you're looking forward to even more seasons, you know for a fact that they're going to draw things out and they are going to plug their own pieces in and things like that. So most of the supporting performances, like the much lesser characters, I thought were just kind of meh, and that happens a lot. I mean, shit, it reminds me a lot of shows like The Walking Dead and things like that, where you've got your core crew that are all really strong actors, and then a lot of the subordinates are just kind of forgettable and so. But the core four, and if I'm going to say like the big six kind of thing, I thought those 6 main characters, all of which being Jim, Nori, and Joe and Barbie, and in any event, you know who the big 6 is if you've watched this, if you've tuned into this at all. And so jumping into impressions of I guess let's get into effects and stuff like that, and set design and whatnot. It's a beautiful looking town. It's some of the set pieces are pretty cool with some explosions, and when this truck crashes into you know, the main source for water. Also, some of the dome effects are really, really cool when some of the weapons are launched at the dome. I mean, you can tell that there was legitimate money put to this project, and it's funny when you read some of the Wikipedia information and they talk about how there were apparent rights sold in syndication both overseas and also to Amazon Studios. And so this was like one of the first times where a show was initially going to broadcast on CBS, and then it was immediately, like a few days later, going to show up on Amazon Prime. And I guess Amazon Prime was paying CBS directly, and that money was going directly to making each episode. And they were saying the budget for each episode was like around $2 million. Yeah, seriously. So it's a project that you can tell they put money into, even if it veers into the melodrama and, you know, just feeling like a soap opera at times with some of the things that are going on. But yeah, and even those gore effects that I mentioned, like the cow getting split, looks good. The falling limbs look good. It got bloodier and just had at least a little more gore and a little more violence than I was expecting. There's even a shootout scene, which is kind of like another shootout scene in the book early on, that, you know, it's more violent than I was expecting from CBS, at least, you know. I know if it was on Showtime, they could have pushed the envelope more. The sex probably would, well, as I mentioned, of course there's going to be sex on a Showtime show. There's characters that hook up okay without really getting too much into it. I'm sure you would have probably seen like the, you know, Julia's beautiful boobs or something silly like that. But, you know, as a whole, I feel like for this particular story, CBS did end up being, it was a perfectly serviceable spot for this to end up. You know, musical cues, I don't like some of the more modern, like, you know, sappy, indie, pseudo-folk country kind of bops and stuff like that. There is some interesting, like, score type stuff, but one of the episodes that stuck out to me very specifically was the use of a song called End of the World, which was a country song, but it doesn't really sound like a country song to me. It sounds like, you know, it gave me shades of the Over and Over, you know, the track. I think it might be Frankie Valli. In any event, it was a song that was used in the television campaign for 11/22/63, where, you know, he's like, if I had my life to live over again. Like, this song that they used called End of the World, it was so befitting, and it's an episode closer, and, you know, it's the end of the world, you know, since you say goodbye and stuff, and it's a beautiful song. I must admit, I went and I jumped on YouTube right after watching the episode, and I listened to the song a couple times. It's it's one of those sad, beautiful, poignant moments on the series, and so I am curious now, as I hit the finish line of this Hail to Stephen King episode, what all of you think about Under the Dome. Have you watched beyond the first season? Do you want me to do, for another Hail to Stephen King episode, a spoiler, just me talking nothing but spoilers about this season, this series? As I said, I'm going to continue watching the second and the third season at this point. I mean, hell, I bought the first two when I saw them on closeout at Zia here for like $8, and that's another reason how I ended up doing this video. But do you want to see more coverage of this? If you don't, that's fine. I'll just watch it and, you know, put my efforts into something that y'all think is a little more worthwhile as we await Elevation and, you know, I go through more anniversary coverage of different things. Speaking of anniversary coverage, the next episode of Hail to Stephen King is going to be covering that book for also its 5-year anniversary. Yes, in 2013, in the month of June, we got Joyland, which was a hard case crime, I want to say. Let's double check here, peeps. Yep, hard case crime. So it's basically King, you know, publishing, aside from, you know, his normal is it Doubleday or Scribner or something like that. But yeah, long story short, that was King's second foray after The Colorado Kid into something I guess you might consider it pulp. I don't know. It's a beautiful story about this kid who goes and works at an amusement park, falls in love with an older woman with a child. He's trying to solve a murder mystery. He has two great friends, and it's really a beautiful coming of age that has no scares in it whatsoever. But for its anniversary, I read it a few years ago, and I was really looking forward to checking it back out. And it's a very quick read. It's like 300-something pages. So I encourage all of you, if you have not checked out either the printed version of it, or jump on Audible, audiobooks.com, or one of the audio streaming services, which I see more and more popping up of, check out Joyland and tune in to hear my thoughts on it, and I would love to hear yours in the comment section. So I have to extend a grande gracias, and it's so very nice to be back here doing a new Hail to Stephen King episode. Thank you so very much for your patience as we were airing some of the convention stuff, and as we were doing our Jurassic Week, which, oh boy, it ended pretty bad with that Fallen Kingdom movie. If you want to see our review of that, we did both a regular and a spoilers. I have to give a shout out to a couple viewers who I'm sharing King love with recently. I've got Ava, who has been telling me about all of her Dark Tower love and stuff like that. She is currently reading Wolves of the Kala for the first time. And then shout out to my buddy Nick, who is reading Desperation. He was sending me photos of the other day, and I believe he's checking it out for the first time. So if you have King books that you're checking out for the first time, re-experiencing, reach out to me on social media, y'all, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I've also got Fuego-tainment stuff on YouTube, which is still awaiting a proper relaunch. I haven't decided, you know, well, it's still up in the air. I've done a few reviews here and there, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to determine how I want to approach with that sort of content, especially with everything that we do on the horror show. But as you see Jaime and Fuego spelled below, that is where you can connect with me. And I also started just a month or so ago a Facebook group called Hail to Stephen King. So if you want to share your thoughts on episodes there, interact with other viewers, other constant readers, CAs as we call ourselves, because we have that cool like little in-click club of sorts, please join up. And I would love to see, I mean, we post King memes, we post thoughts on stuff, I always give links to episodes there. And yeah, if you haven't actually hit that bell, liked and, you know, subscribed and done all that stuff so you get all the notifications about when there's new Hail to Stephen King episodes coming, Tuesday and Saturday, and all the other awesome, scarific content that we do here on the horror show, please do that. It is greatly appreciated. And if you share this episode, do it with the #tizzle, Hail to Stephen King. So once again, I've been Jaime Fuego, you can just call me Fuego for short, and until the wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos. I hope that we have been well met, and until, yes, the time that we get to see each other comes around once again, I hope it's sooner rather than later. Just remember, stay scared, and read Stephen King Under the Dome. It's still better than, you know, than this stuff, but it's not bad.